1947, we have received and analyzed between 1 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources.
Fleet of them. What's on the ASA? Oh my gosh. That's not an LNS though, is it? It's not. I do have an LNS, man. Well, if there's no thing.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Unidentified Anomalous Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Tom Thompson, and you are listening to or watching the Unidentified Anomalous Podcast. Sadly, Digby, my partner in crime, is not going to be able to join us today. He was having difficulties, technically speaking, over at his residence in Spain. Apparently, the power keeps going on and off, and he had called me early this morning and told me that he wasn't even sure if he was going to be able to do it in the afternoon. Then the time passed, and now here we are. So I decided to just pre-record the episode. I feel like this was the best option. There's a lot of information to coordinate and get through, and I had to kind of take everything and sort of tweak it so that I could do it solo, and here we are. So normally when we do the show, we start off by talking to each other about how our week went. And I think it's it was a bit of a double-edged sword on my end this week. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you follow me on X, you already know about this, very likely. Um, but a family member of mine, one of my first cousins, is very sick and is in the hospital right now fighting lymphoma. And that has been weighing very heavily on my mind ever since that situation began very, very suddenly. So, right now, what's happening is they are working to determine what type of lymphoma it is. And I believe based on that diagnosis, they're going to then figure out how to proceed with which type of chemo that they're going to utilize to treat the lymphoma. It's on the side of his neck, and it got really large. And as a result, I'm assuming it's pressing down on nerves in that particular area. So that side of his face is essentially paralyzed at the moment. So it just came out of nowhere. I'm very close with him, and it's really challenging to see other people in my family so torn up over it. I'm an empathetic person, so if someone I'm close with is near me and they're crying, it rubs off. So, if you're someone who believes in the power of manifestation or prayer, positive vibes, if you could just do me a small favor and whatever God or higher power that you reach out to, if at all, uh, just keep my cousin in your thoughts. I really want him to make it through this, be able to go back to just enjoying life the way that he was before this started. There's a lot of unknowns right now, but he's very young. I mean, he's younger than I am. I'm 34. He's way too young for this. Um, so that that was something that I was dealing with throughout this week. Um, and I really do want to say thank you to the people that did reach out after I made the post about it. Because I just felt like, it couldn't hurt to say something about it and to ask for people to, you know, put out positive intentions out into the universe. I truly believe that that type of thing can affect reality. And, and it just, again, it just doesn't hurt, right? So, um, to my cousin Joey, I love you, man. And there's a lot of people that are rooting for you. And, kick that cancer's ass, man. Just kick its ass. So, just wanted to, touch on that briefly. It's been obviously uh, a busy month in ufology. There's a lot of information to get to for this episode. I feel like because I'm doing this one on my own, I do have some images and a couple video clips, but it's going to be very listener friendly. Um, Essentially typed up a lot of narration to be able to use because I just want to make sure that all the information is clear, concise, and correct. So we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to get right into the news, and I am going to hit that button.
Beyond the mundane.
All right, so starting off today, we are going to talk about a quick call to action regarding the UAP Disclosure Act, which is still being negotiated. In the description of this show, I'm going to put a couple links for contacting senators and for contacting local representatives. I urge you to do that at some point, at least within the next few days. I don't know how much more time is left on this. This was supposed to be dead in the water. And it's kind of interesting to see just how much the greater community has had an effect on the movement on the Schumer amendment. I'm going to show you this particular image. This was a post from, I believe, November 25th from Christopher Mellon. But this was shared in a Reddit post. Chris Mellon on the 25th had said, "Unfortunately, my understanding is that the Schumer Rounds Amendment is poised to be shot down on Monday by Republican leadership on the House Armed Services Committee. This is the last opportunity for interested constituents to make their voice heard on this issue." But the post says, "Remember, everyone, Schumer's UAPDA was supposed to be killed quietly last Monday. This community has made the difference with your voice, and now it has a good chance of passing. Keep calling your reps." I second that. I echo that sentiment. It doesn't take much to make a phone call, to type up a short email. There's a lot of passionate people in this community. There's a lot of people that want greater transparency on this issue and many others. And as a result of this odd backlash from certain officials, we'll say, the UFO community really rallied the troops on this one and put their foot down and said, no, that's not how this one's going to play out. It was really great to see a lot of different people kind of put their differences aside, and they just teamed up on this one, and that's always good to see. We need more collaboration. We need more brotherhood, sisterhood. We need the community to be much more united than it is. There's still a lot of division, just like you find in almost any other online community, of course. But it really feels like we had a profound effect on the direction that this issue was moving in. And now it's still being debated, but there are specific aspects of the amendment that are being looked into. They're just, I guess, essentially um, in a negotiation phase, trying to, tweak things here and there, try to maybe, appease one side. It's, and this is political to some degree, and it's complicated to another. Uh, but I would think that by the end of this, now I feel like it's going to pass, but I don't think it's going to pass in its original form as much as we may want that. Um, but time will tell, obviously. Now, for those of you that want to stay up to date with what is going on with the Schumer Amendment, I would definitely look no further than Mr. Stephen Bassett. Now, Disclosure Diaries on Twitter had made a post on Reddit actually saying, after hearing about the pushback to the UAPDA largely being centered around the eminent domain, subpoena powers, and the review board, I called out Stephen Bassett on X to clarify what the justification seems to be. According to him, it's largely driven by a desire from the defense contractors to maintain and or file patents on the technology of unknown origin, which supposedly doesn't exist, by the way. Strange times. Yeah, I would say. Shout out to Disclosure Diaries, always keeping the public informed and up to date. Now, Stephen Bassett put out a couple tweets in relation to this situation that are definitely of interest. I'm going to throw those up for you guys real quick. Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group says, the final bill will be a test for the status of the disclosure process. Hopefully, much of the negotiation is being recorded as it is historic. It is likely the authors packed this bill in order to have cards with which to bargain. The latest info I have is the defense contractors want the right to file patents on the alien tech. Think about that for a moment. And then he went on to say, how important is the review board to the authors of the UAP Disclosure Act? It is mentioned in the amendment 144 times. I think that pretty much speaks for itself. And again, I've said this, and I'll say it one more time. If for some reason that this doesn't pass, it is not the end of disclosure. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to kill the movement. Obviously, it would create a slew of issues, without doubt. But I don't want everybody to hang their hats on this as if this is the end all be all. When legislation is drafted in the United States government, typically, at least from what I can see, it goes through a metamorphosis before it reaches its final form, and then it's either, rejected or it gets passed. It's not uncommon, and especially with a topic like this. I mean, did any of us really expect this to just, to just slide on in the door? I don't think so. We knew there was going to be some pushback on this. So, piggybacking off of that, in a recent appearance on that UFO podcast, which shout out to those gentlemen, one of my go-to sources, one of my absolute favorite shows ever. I just can't get enough of them. I listen to every episode the day of. Danny Sheehan, renowned constitutional lawyer and advocate for disclosure, shed light on the critical nature of the Schumer Amendment. This amendment, if it had been enacted as it stood, would have led to the creation of a presidentially appointed board responsible for overseeing information related to UFOs. This board would have wielded significant authority, extending its reach over the entirety of U.S. military services, intelligence agencies, and even private aerospace companies, interestingly. A key aspect of this board's power would have been its ability to issue subpoenas and reclaim UFO technology and equipment that private aerospace firms had acquired. This point was particularly vital considering the ongoing efforts of these companies to reverse engineer UFO technology, often, sadly, with the intent of developing weaponry. Sheehan raised serious concerns about the potential militarization of UFO technology. He strongly advocated for an international treaty that would ban the use of such technology for weaponization on a global scale. However, the amendment encountered resistance as we expected it, especially from political figures linked to regions with a heavy aerospace industry footprint. Go figure. Influenced by both the aerospace sector and covert intelligence activities, these individuals actively worked to dilute or eliminate crucial elements of the amendment. Sheehan stood firm against any dilution of the amendment, arguing that stripping it of its subpoena power or the capability to retrieve UFO technology would drastically reduce its impact and effectiveness. He also highlighted the behind the scenes political strategies and lobbying efforts by aerospace companies aiming to sway the amendment's final form. In response to these challenges, Sheehan urges the public to rally and exert pressure on their political representatives advocating for the amendment to be passed in its unaltered original form. Get out there, contact your local officials, your state officials. It doesn't take much. All of the local representatives and state representatives, they all have offices, they all have phone numbers, they all have emails. I have done it. I do it pretty regularly. At least once a month, I reach out here in New Jersey and say something about what's going on. And I do get responses back most of the time, honestly. And to be really, really frank, they don't seem like they're just an auto-generated response. Either it really feels like somebody is reading what I'm saying and then responding. So that's also very positive when you're putting in the time and effort to do that. It's nice to actually feel like somebody is on the other end reading it and listening to what you're saying. And it seems as though the representatives in my state are taking the matter seriously and kind of working behind the scenes. I don't know what's been done. I don't know what they're up to essentially, but I am working to figure that out. I would like to get a statement from a couple of my local representatives and state officials. So stay tuned for that in the future when that does happen. Now, Danny Sheehan, aside from that UFO podcast, he was also on another show that I enjoy called Podcast UFO, and he made some striking allegations suggesting that Travis Taylor and Jay Stratton are receiving payments from the Defense Department and major aerospace companies in an ongoing effort to conceal the reality of unidentified aerial phenomena. I have no way of proving or disproving that claim. However, because it's coming from Mr. Sheehan, it holds a lot of weight to me personally. I feel he is about as credible as it gets. That's another one of those, stay tuned situations. But it really wouldn't surprise me. Would any of you be shocked if you found out that any of these individuals that we see linked to the disclosure situation were actually working against it? No, it's not really surprising whatsoever. This is something that has classically been going on for decades. It's nothing new under the sun whatsoever. I expected it to be someone. It's just really disappointing if it happens to be those two guys too, because I like them, to be honest. And I like Travis especially. I think he's kind of, he seems like a nice guy, but money talks. You know, um, they're throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars his way. It's like, dude, you know, it's not hard to get someone to bite on that, you know. We don't have all the details there though. So again, I am not saying that what Mr. Sheehan has claimed is true, but because he is the one saying it, it is something that is going to have to be investigated further in order for us to figure out what the real story is behind that. Now, we're going to play our first video clip of the show. This is from the Good Trouble Show, hosted by Matt Ford. Shout out to Matt. I actually shot Matt a DM the other day, and I just want to personally say thank you for everything that you have been doing. It's very clear that you have great sources. You're working hard behind the scenes, and you've also, as you've stated yourself, Matt, have had some really interesting experiences with the phenomenon personally. And that resonates with me very deeply. Obviously, I mentioned that in my message to you, and you have my support, Digby's support, and the support of the UFO community at large, I'm sure. Now, during this particular episode, he was joined by Christopher Sharp, who's going to be on this show at some point after the new year, and Josh Boswell, who I hope to get on the show eventually, regarding a bombshell article that they all collaborated on that came out in the Daily Mail. I was actually at work in the middle of cleaning a washing machine for a customer, and Digby called me and dropped all of this on me all at once. And needless to say, I put on the episode immediately, whipped out the earbud, and just went right back to it. And yeah, was totally distracted. Definitely listening to this. It was utterly fascinating. So let's play the first clip. This is from the Good Trouble Show. Matt Ford, Christopher Sharp, Josh Boswell.
Concerned UFOs while they are cloaked, and that if the non-human craft landed, crashed, or brought down to Earth, and then of course when this happens, the special military units are sent to salvage the wreckage. What can you tell us about this system? My understanding is that this is critical. This system is critical in order to generate these operations in very short notice to recover these things.
Yeah, so this is an area of the story where I would love to get more information. You know, we haven't fully fleshed out yet, at least in this particular story, you know, where exactly that intelligence comes from of, you know, oh, here's a UFO we've spotted. We're going to go get it. Here's a crashed one, or here's one flying around cloaked. But what we were told is that is some intelligence that the OGA receives. And it appears that it receives it from another agency, with another department within the CIA. So what we can deduce from that is we have the CIA having capability to spot these incredibly advanced craft that we know are not ours, and we know are not adversaries, not other countries, that are flying anywhere around the world. And that then they are able to dispatch a unit to collect that. This, it opens up a bunch of questions, right? It opens up questions about our satellite technology, because other people have told us, and in the process of putting together this story, you guys and I, spoke to a lot of people who didn't all make it into the article, and some of them told us different things. You'll hear that. The satellites that we use for Google Maps, for example, are not high enough fidelity to catch, small, relatively small objects like these craft flying around. But it begs the question: does the CIA or another government agency have very, very sophisticated satellites that we don't know about that are able to pick up these things? It also begs another question, right? This use of cloaked. I wanted to put that in the article. The source couldn't go into more detail about that. There are various restrictions that we're dealing with here, right? You've got classified material. You've got the fear of reprisal of these sources, which is why they're all anonymous as well in this story. you've got the potential that, if they give up too much information, that could identify them. So we're being kind of limited here, right? But what I did want to include was this phrase about them being cloaked. This tells us that there is some kind of technology that these objects are using to avoid normal detection, but that there is some sophisticated technology that the CIA has in its possession that it can bring to bear to spot these things. Now, maybe this will point us in us, or at least Congress, in the right direction for tracking down these things, right? If we go to an agency that is using more prosaic technology, less sophisticated technology to look out for these things, just sort of normal weather satellites, that kind of thing, maybe we're not going to spot them. We'll spend years going through the data and say, oh, well, couldn't find anything. It's because we weren't looking in the right place.
All right, so we're going to add some more context to this clip, especially for those of you that may not be familiar with this story. A bombshell article in the Daily Mail, crafted by three of my personal favorite individuals, Matt Ford, Christopher Sharp, and Josh Boswell, dropped this week, uncovering a trail of documents related to the CIA's Office of Global Access, which I had never heard of before up until this point, and its role in retrieving crashed UFOs, sparking vital debates about the role of democracy and oversight in secret missions. Developed over the summer, the article explores the complex procedures of crash retrieval with a focus on handling radiological materials. Little side note, the secrecy, the foundation, the blueprint that was used during the Manhattan Project, from what I understand, was apparently taken and then transferred over to the UFO problem, so to speak. They were able to easily keep certain matters under tight wraps as long as it involved anything to do with nuclear technology, radiation, etc. So that's one of the reasons why there is a discussion going on lately, regarding, for example, the Department of Energy being involved with this. Essentially, the methods and even the laws that were used to keep some of the atomic research under wraps was then applied to the UFO cover-up. A crucial element of the CIA's involvement is its intelligence collection on UAPs in coordination with special operations for recovery missions. Remarkably, the CIA appears to possess the technology to detect even cloaked, advanced non-human craft, raising several questions about the scope and nature of the CIA's technological capabilities. The process of reporting this story was met with challenges, primarily due to the need to protect the anonymity of sources bound by security oaths and facing potential consequences. This led to the provision of limited and meticulously scrutinized information. Each journalist independently verified the information through their own trusted sources. The article also addresses the issue of insufficient democratic oversight within defense and intelligence agencies. The potential cooperation of foreign governments and intelligence agencies in UAP recovery efforts adds to the complexity of the situation. A particularly notable account in the story is about SEAL teams deployed for retrieval missions, initially mistaking the technology they recovered for advanced terrestrial technology. The involvement of private defense contractors in certain operations raises further questions about oversight, legality, and the ethical implications of withholding such information from the public and government officials. This revelation emphasizes the urgent need for greater transparency and oversight in covert operations like those undertaken by the CIA's Office of Global Access. It advocates for more in-depth investigations and legislative measures to ensure that democratic principles are maintained amidst such extraordinary revelations and activities. I'm sure many of you have probably heard this throughout the course of the last week, but we simply, by principle, by definition, do not have a functioning democracy in full if these types of things are going on. I do understand and sympathize with some of the secrecy behind this, for some of the reasons and how we got here. Cold War, just there's this high level of uncertainty, for example. But it's been drawn out for way too long. and we really need to make a significant change. There needs to be greater transparency, and like I said earlier in the show, please, I'm gonna reiterate this probably a couple different times today. Reach out to your local and state officials if you care about this issue. Please, it is crucial right now that you do so. So, we're gonna do a little bit of a rewind here. No clip, no screenshots or anything to present, but it was just something that was on my mind that I kind of wanted to throw into the show today. So, when David Grush was on Joe Rogan's podcast, there was a portion of that show that I kind of thought about over the last couple of days, and I just wanted to throw this in for you guys because I thought it was interesting. It's short, but it's sweet. This is a section from the interview that I transcribed real quick. It might not even be 100% correct because I did it with a program, so bear with me. It reads as follows. Brush said there was like CIA docs about consciousness and like weird remote viewing stuff, besides the Stargate program that were released in the FOIA reading room on the CIA's website too, that were pretty trippy. Like, wow, the CIA is looking into some really interesting stuff. I mean, they're a hardcore intel agency. What's going on there? Rogan said, well, it makes sense that they would kind of have to find out if that's bullshit or not. Like, you can't ignore that if you're really doing your job. Your job is intelligence. Like, okay, like, let's look at this. Rush then said, or it's an aspect of the phenomenon because it's like a reach out from the crash retrieval program. Like, hey, I need you to look into some weird stuff because it might be the key to unlock something that we've got in the warehouse. Now, Danny Sheehan, in his recent interview, brought up an interesting point about the connection between consciousness and the control of retrieved NHI craft. According to him, the US government struggles to operate these craft because they require a specific level of consciousness for piloting, a quality apparently not so readily present in military personnel. This statement subtly suggests that the necessary level of consciousness might be achievable in some manner, however. Shamans and mystics have been reaching a particular level of consciousness for millennia, which is akin to what's required for these experiences, apparently. This is why experiences like shamanic initiation, alien abduction, and near death experiences, in many ways, are fundamentally similar. There's a growing realization about the significant relevance of the link between those who have these experiences and the realms of mysticism and parapsychology. So, if you're interested in delving deeper into this subject, I would strongly suggest exploring the publications of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Encounters, the Free Foundation. The Free Foundation is a nonprofit research organization under the 501c3 category, consisting of academics and researchers dedicated to studying the interplay between consciousness, contact experiences, and non human intelligence. This foundation was co founded by Apollo astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Australian researcher Mary Rodwell, Harvard astrophysicist Dr. Rudy Schild, and Ray Hernandez. A few months back, my buddy Astral, if you're on X, you'll know him very well, had informed me that Mr. Hernandez was giving out free copies of these materials through email. So I reached out to Ray. We had a quick little exchange that was very friendly. He seems like just such a nice person. And he was kind and generous enough to send these materials over to me. And I just wanted to say thank you to Astral for letting me know about that. And obviously to Ray for taking the time to send it all over to me. It was deeply appreciated. The late Dr. Edgar Mitchell established Free on the foundational belief that there are no unnatural or supernatural phenomena, only very large gaps in our knowledge of what is natural. For those of you, especially that are researchers like I am, I think you'll really enjoy these particular resources. And if you have any trouble finding them online for any reason, just DM me on X. I'll be happy to point you in the right direction to be able to get your hands on them. So now we're going to look into a couple interesting claims that I ran across today that are unconfirmed. You know, they're in the rumor mill. but they're interesting enough that I felt I should cover them on the show today. I was kind of just traversing X as I normally do throughout the day, and I was, collecting notes and such for the show. And I came across a really interesting post. It was definitely picking up steam, and it's from Maya Benowitz. Now, I don't know Maya all that well, but I've seen enough of her posts to kind of get a little bit of an idea of how she is as a person. And I know it's the internet, so I don't know how fair that really is. But nonetheless, I feel that this is definitely worth looking at. So, in her post, and this is her profile here, as you can see, Maya Benowitz is a mathematical physicist and quantum cosmologist, also an aspiring Time Lord. Obviously, she's just, having some fun in her profile, as many of us like to do. Now, here's the rumor. This is coming directly from her. It says, I've been told that Biden is preparing an unprecedented address to the nation sometime next year following the passage of the UAP Disclosure Act in the NDAA. So, obviously, two interesting points one could grab from this. A, the fact that Biden would be addressing the nation about it. That's huge, obviously. But this is also assuming that the Disclosure Act passes and makes it into the NDAA. So I commented and asked her if she was able to elaborate any further on her post, and she is not able to. I understand that. And just based on what I know of her, I found this interesting enough to share with all of you. Again, I can't confirm it. I can't disprove it. It's just worth keeping an eye on. We'll see how things play out. And if this turns out to be the case, obviously it will lend quite a bit of credibility to Miss Benowitz. And if it's true, it's very exciting. This next year is probably going to be extremely important for the disclosure movement if things play out in this way. Now, the other rumor that started floating around today, and I believe this is the source of that rumor. This is coming from Mike Disclosure on X at Mike Disclosure. Says a confidential source who has retired from Lockheed Martin has disclosed that the Center for Innovation, referred to as the Lighthouse in Suffolk, Virginia, is where the UAP Reverse Engineering Special Access Program is currently being run. The facility contains a SCIF and has SAP clearance from the Department of Defense. I ran an AI search to find more information on the facility, and this was the response I got. Unauthorized attempts to access secure facilities or obtain confidential information are illegal, may lead to serious consequences. As a public service, this information is being provided for disclosure of the truth to the American people and the public at large. It's from Mike Disclosure on X. Again, unsubstantiated, but it's definitely worth sharing because it could be true. I am going to do my due diligence tomorrow at some point. It's getting very late here right now. I've had to do a couple of reshoots with the show tonight for certain technical reasons. It's just been that kind of day, that kind of week even. I'm going to reach out to Mike and see if I can get some more information, even if it's just a little bit, some clarification. I'll see what I can manage, obviously, as respectfully as possible. I don't expect him to reveal his source, but I'll try to ask a few questions where I can get some answers that may require one to, read between the lines, which I like. Feel like it's something that I'm pretty decent at. So I'm definitely going to give that a shot the best way that I know how. So the next video clip that I have for you guys is Tim Burchett and his recent appearance on Meet the Press Reports. It's actually fairly refreshing the way that this conversation played out. So let's run the clip and then we'll discuss it afterwards.
Towards research of it. And
What got you started on this issue?
transparency. Since 1947, they've told us these things don't exist, yet Harry Reid funded, very well funded, millions of dollars towards research of it. And they spend a whole heck of a lot of time, effort, and money on telling the American public they don't exist, but yet they're studying them. Case in point, I proposed an amendment to the FAA reauthorization bill, and it basically just said if a commercial airline pilot were to spot some anomaly, or UFO as we used to call them, and they would issue a report to the FAA, which they would, but also that report would be made to Congress.
Sure.
Well, it was blocked. The whip told me that it was blocked, and I said, why was it blocked? He said the intelligence community blocked it. And I said, wait a minute, you mean the committee? And he said, no, the community.
What does that mean? Because look, I've been in Washington a long time, and probably too long, some people might say, but I would...
You're still a young man.
There's a part of me that says, well, this is just what the intel community... Even if they don't know something, they're afraid of admitting what they don't know. How much of this stonewall is that, do you think?
I think there's quite a bit of arrogance, but there's also a compartmentalization. You got to realize I'm from Knoxville. Oak Ridge National Lab backs up to my back door.
Right. You're well aware of national security issues.
I am. And you figure during the atomic bomb, several thousand people worked there, yet maybe 12 knew about what they were actually working. I mean, husbands and wives didn't know. I've talked to several people in my campaigning, knocking on doors. You know, they tell you that they didn't know that their wife was working on the fuse and they were working on an electrical component of the bomb. But you fast forward now. We have these committees. We had Intelligence Committee had their first open committee last year on this issue. And they brought in 2 people that were supposed to be overseeing it, I guess, for the Pentagon. Those guys couldn't even spell UFO. I mean, they had no knowledge, and it's just infuriating to me. We're spending billions of dollars. We give the Pentagon billions of dollars. They cannot account for 50% of their assets. And what do? We rewarded them with, I think, 20 or 40 billion new dollars this year.
Let me ask you this. You've said that this is a worldwide phenomenon, and we know there are multiple militaries. What would an international investigation look like on this? How could because it certainly would help the scientific community.
I think so, but I think the scientific community is kept out. And when they're brought in, it's just for dollars. Right now, because of people like yourself and NBC and others in the national media are putting this out because they realize over 55% of the people believe there's something else out there. I have a T-shirt I sell on my website. More people believe in UFOs than believe in Congress. I mean, it's the truth, brother. You and I both know it, and that's why they don't come to Washington, because there's no intelligent life down here. But it's just, if it doesn't exist, then why do they keep spending the money to tell us? And is it Russia? I don't think so. They wouldn't be bogged down in Ukraine. If it's China, they'd own us even more. And if it's us, why have we had 14 documented near misses with $50 million aircraft and some of the best trained pilots in the world?
I like the way that conversation was handled. It felt much more mature than some of the previous iterations and examples of a one-on-one chat regarding this topic, from mainstream news outlets. We need to see more of this. And of course, Tim Burchett's very witty, he's very humorous, and let me be very clear. I am solely focused on this issue. I'm not concerned with any of his other politics. I have very much removed myself from that world at this point. I'm still very aware of what's going on politically in our country and in other countries, but it's become very divisive, very toxic, chaotic. So I'm steering clear, and I absolutely do not want to drag politics into this if I can help it. It's interesting how many different journalists, representatives, and officials that I've seen recently speaking about this subject in a very matter-of-fact and sort of just this very confident manner. They know that this is real. They know that this is going on. It's clear. It's obvious. Even when David Grush was on Joe Rogan, he's like, I 100% know that this is going on, that this is a reality. Um, I think that's just the fact of the matter at this point, everybody. This is happening. And it's one of the most important moments, it may be the most important moment in the history of our species to come to this realization. And we have a very tricky situation that we have to navigate through at this point as a result of the cover up. I have taken a step back and I've really tried to, especially with this next video that I'm going to be releasing on my channel, I've tried to kind of get into the minds of the individuals that over the years have been responsible for keeping this thing a secret. And I've tried to play devil's advocate, tried to understand where they were coming from. Now, there are plenty of crimes that have been committed that there's no convincing me that that was appropriate. Murder and such. That's just not something I'm going to agree with. But some of the more basic foundational reasons for secrecy, I think some of us can sympathize with, at least, right? Especially during the Cold War era. If let's paint this picture. Let's say you are a high-ranking military official who makes very important decisions in the United States of America at a time where we face, the great red threat. Soviet Union. They've become a nuclear superpower. Their missiles are pointed at us. Our missiles are pointed at them. You got the Cuban Missile Crisis, etc. It's a very dangerous time. The doomsday clock was moving ever closer to midnight. It was pretty regular practice for people to comply with local atomic bomb drills, hiding under desks and such. Like, that was ever going to stop that from happening, right? Like, that's going to protect you. But still, nonetheless, you get what I'm saying. And my mom my dad lived through that. My mom said it, petrified her. She was terrified of the idea of nuclear war, as we all should be. But to live through that, she has a really interesting perspective on it. Now, let's say you're this high-ranking military official with extraordinary responsibilities on your plate in the midst of all of that, and an object crashes in the desert in the United States, and it becomes very clear very quickly that it wasn't built by humans. What are you really going to do? Are you really going to tell the entire world about that? You don't know what kind of technology is inside of it. You don't know if there's weaponry. I mean, it's extraordinarily complex and difficult. So I can sympathize in certain regards at certain times in history, but I feel that the major cover-up has gone on for far too long at this point, and the planet Earth is due for a paradigm shift. We need it at this point. It has to happen. We essentially need a dark night of the soul. We need to confront something that a large portion of our population is going to struggle coming to terms with. But if it's reality, how long can you hide from it? Are we approaching a situation where no matter what the government does, no matter what our elected officials do, we're still going to know about it because the phenomenon itself will make itself known? Hard to say, right? We've heard those rumors before. 2027, etc. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, and again, I feel like this is the most opportune time in all of human history to pull the Band-Aid off. You should do it slowly, in steps, I feel. I feel like that really is the best way to go about it. And I don't think it's going to be nearly as disruptive as it would have been had we done this in, say, like, the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s. I feel that people are very distracted. Their attention span is really low. I mean, I'm even guilty of that. A lot of us are, social media, our cell phones. I'm on a PC right now. I just think now's the time. I think people can absorb this information now, right now. Um, all of it? No, I really don't. Do I think they should tell us about abductions day one? No. Should it be on the table as part of the longer plan? Yes. Now, if they did just come out and tell us everything, okay. If that's what they decide to do, that's what they decide to do. But what I'm saying personally is that I can compromise on the idea of doing this in phases because it still brings us to the finish line regardless. Um, and I compare it to, a hot summer day. You want to go swimming. The water's ice cold, and you're gonna have that jolt, that shock when if you just decide to do a cannonball right into the water. If you want to go the more comfortable route, you step in feet first, go a little bit lower, get used to the temperature. Now it's up to your waist, a little bit lower, and next thing you know, you're swimming and it's fine. I feel like when you look at it from that perspective, it's probably the cleanest and least likely to have a catastrophic outcome way of going about it. I don't like this being secret at all. I wish we were in a situation where they could just let everything out. I really do. But I have to be mature about this. I have to be realistic about this. I have to think about all of the different angles. There's a lot going on here. This isn't black and white. I stress this a lot. This isn't, the citizens versus the government. It is far, far more complex than that. It's a spider web of shadows and misdirections and mirrors and smoke and flying saucers. I mean, it is really difficult to navigate. We don't have a GPS for this. We're trying to figure it out as we go. I'm just one researcher trying to, put some pieces together. I don't have all of the answers. I don't think anybody really does. But, we're doing our best to try to figure this out. One thing I do know for sure, without any doubt, is that someone on this planet has technology that is so far ahead of what the public knows about that it begs the question, who's in charge of that? You know, um, and again, it's just the evidence is it's overwhelming at this point. The amount of anecdotal evidence, witness testimony, the photographs, there's video footage, there's physical traces, there's biological effects. I mean, the list goes on. If this was presented as a court case and the whole goal was to convince the jury that UFOs exist and we're being visited by somebody, this case wins in court. I'm telling you it does. Like, pretty easily. It blows my mind that some people are still so incredibly dismissive of the information. I feel like there's a lot that they haven't seen, that they haven't been exposed to, and if they were to be rational and mature about it and really analyze it, they would come to the same outcome. I mean, it's just, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it really is like that type of situation. So we have one more video clip to look at on the show today. This clip is from the Fox News coverage of the UAP caucus's press conference and the CIA UFO retrieval report with an interesting recounting of a personal sighting by one of the anchors.
Does not want to share any of this information with Congress. We're asking why.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers are demanding more transparency on what the intelligence community knows about unidentified aerial phenomena, or UFOs. This comes as a new report from the Daily Mail details a secretive CIA office that has been collecting crashed UFO evidence for decades. Therefore, we must talk to our only anchor here at Fox News who has possibly encountered unidentified aerial phenomenon. This is the moment she let us know last year.
Let's watch this. I saw this big flash of light, so I grabbed my mom. We were looking outside, and this big flash of light is hovering over close to our house, out in the middle of nowhere. And we're calling for my dad and my brother and my sister to come over and see it. And my mom is so scared that she turns off all the lights. And before they came, literally, this ball of light just goes whoosh, whoosh. First of all, aren't you so glad that I cut my hair? Thank God. Second of all, it might have been like a helicopter. I don't know. But the way that it went, whoosh, like that, it was so crazy. And I still do not know what it is. So I'm biased. I do want transparency as well.
Well, and what's fascinating, and the reason why we're talking about it, aside from UFOs, but it is something that Congress is taking seriously. And what you described about the shape and the way it moved is what we've seen in the hearings they've had from pilots, FA-18 pilots that say there's no rotor wash, there's no wings. Really, it's something that people have never seen, and that's what's getting everyone's interest on Capitol Hill.
And they're still talking about it right now. I mean, they held a press conference earlier in the week. Representative Eric Burlison from Missouri just tweeted about it, too, saying that, look, we talk about the need for a democratic system to have an informed citizenry. This is a major subject that one would think an informed and responsible citizenry needs to know about it.
From what I can gather, I think she's playing coy here. I live near a military base. And I can tell you, I've had a few experiences where helicopters have gotten very close to my house, like really low. And I will say this, it's pretty easy to mistake a helicopter for a UFO when it's out in the distance. So if it has its lights on and it's pointed right at you, sometimes it will look like just a single light and you're like, oh, what the hell is that? But as it gets closer, you begin to hear the rotor spinning, and it becomes really obvious that it's a helicopter. Now, based on what she's saying in this clip, if this object was that close, she would have known it was a helicopter. The characteristics that she's describing, although somewhat similar, there are qualities that are missing that would lead me to believe that it's a helicopter. So it sounds like she did actually experience something fairly anomalous. And I think she really would have known if it was a chopper. Like I said, I've been near them when they are that close. It's really obvious. You really can't mistake them for anything. So the fact that she's even questioning it, I think she just kind of threw in the helicopter comment there to try to soften the blow of what she was saying. But I would imagine that if we could look into her mind and see what she actually witnessed, we would probably all realize it probably wasn't a helicopter. Now, interestingly, now that we're kind of near the end of the show, a little piece of news that just dropped, so kind of in real time here. This is from UAP James on Twitter. Shout out to UAP James. He and I follow each other, I believe. President Joe Biden supports the UAP Disclosure Act per Danny Sheehan. Boy, Sheehan's been on fire this week. His statement follows speculation that Senator Chuck Schumer coordinated with the White House and its National Security Council while drafting the UAPDA. Now, apparently this is coming out of an article that dropped today, again, from Christopher Sharp over at Liberation Times. Shout out to Chris. We are really looking forward to having him on the show. In a Liberation Times interview, ex-Watergate and Pentagon Papers lawyer Daniel Sheehan, representing whistleblowers alleging hidden and potentially unlawful programs involving materials of non-human origin, warned that the window is closing to preserve the unidentified anomalous phenomena UAP language in the U.S. Senate's 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA. The language, known as the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, put forth by Senate leader, Chuck Schumer and Senator Mike Rounds, advocates for a controlled disclosure regarding the potential existence of materials and biologics with unknown or non-human origins. Currently, lawmakers from the House and Senate are negotiating the final version of the NDAA to be signed by President Biden. Negotiators have been working for months and hope to release the text of a final bill as soon as next week. Sheehan is president of the New Paradigm Institute, an organization advocating for the UAP Disclosure Act to pass in its current form, as I mentioned earlier, and is closely involved with negotiations currently taking place, which will determine its inclusion within the final NDAA. Sheehan informed Liberation Times that Senator Roger Wicker, the Republican ranking member of the Senate's Armed Services Committee, is the latest politician to join a small cohort of Republicans in opposition to the UAP Disclosure Act. They've brought on this guy, Roger Wicker, who's the Republican senator from Mississippi, Sheehan told Liberation Times. Sheehan pointed out that the only opposition to the UAP legislation comes from 5 influential Republican politicians, Senators Wicker and Mitch McConnell, minority leader of the Senate, and Representatives Mike Turner, Mike Rogers, and Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. 98% of everybody in Congress is in support of this bill. It's just these 5 guys holding it up. Sheehan told Liberation Times that the resistance against the UAP language is headed by Representatives Mike Rogers and Mike Turner, chairs of the House's Armed Services Committee and Intelligence Committee. Sheehan and other sources revealed that both individuals have faced pressure from private defense contractors and the intelligence community influencing their opposition. Again, and Digby had brought this up a few weeks back. All you got to do is look at Mike Turner's biggest donors, and it'll tell you everything you need to know here. Like, I mean, it's really that obvious, and it's like, it's ridiculous. It is. It's really, it's humorous. Honestly, it's like, geez, you couldn't possibly have been more blatant about this. As to specifically name the entities pressuring Representative Turner and Rogers, Sheehan pinpointed Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Radiance Technologies, and the CIA's Directorate of Operations run by David Marlowe, its current deputy director. While the Liberation Times has been unable to further substantiate the involvement of these organizations, Sheehan states, the 2 chairpersons have been gotten to by the private aerospace industry and by the CIA. Who knows what positive offers they've been made for additional campaign contributions or what kind of threats have been made to them. The CIA's covert operations people are capable of delivering. The Directorate of Operations functions as the clandestine branch of the CIA, serves as the nation's authority for coordinating, deconflicting, and evaluating clandestine operations across the United States intelligence community. Sources indicate to Liberation Times that the CIA's Office of Global Access, OGA, works closely with the Directorate of Operations in conducting retrieval missions involving crashed or landed crafts of non-human origin. Sheehan added, the Operations Directorate is the dog that wags the tail in the CIA. According to Sheehan, the CIA is responsible for dispersing non-human materials to aerospace companies, and, he says, Radiance Technologies is one of its newest customers. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and now Radiance Technologies are given particular discrete aspects of the technology to try to figure it out. Sheehan said that the 3 contractors could potentially be subject to lawsuits due to the alleged arrangements with the CIA, commenting, it makes those particular companies subject to massive antitrust lawsuits by other companies that are trying to be honest and trying to compete against them. Speaking to journalist George Knapp last year, shout out to George, Tim Tinsley, president of Radiance Technologies, said, "I'm waiting for one of those," when asked by Knapp if he'd accept the contract to figure out how a UFO worked. Radiance Technologies maintains an office in Beaver Creek, Ohio, situated within Representative Turner's congressional district. Oh, yeah. Big surprise there. Additionally, its headquarters in Huntsville, Alabama, is conveniently located near Representative Rogers' district. Again, I mean, the puzzle pieces fit just beautifully, don't they? Since 2010, over $30,000 was given by Radiance Technologies to Representative Rogers and over $60,000 to Representative Turner. Although not large amounts in comparison to other contractors' donations, it is still a significant amount for a smaller entity such as Radiance Technologies. A case for close relations and potentially influence can be made. In 2009, Citizens Against Government Waste analyzed the NDAA for fiscal year 2010, noting that $4 million had been requested by Representative Turner for open source research centers intended for Radiance Technologies. Representative Turner is also frequently photographed with Radiance Technologies. I saw one of the photos this week. Employees, and in 2016, Turner cut the ribbon to open its 9,000 square foot office location in Beaver Creek. That's the photo I saw. Representative Rogers also appears to be familiar with Radiance Technologies employees, and in 2020, he was a guest of honor as Radiance celebrated its 20th anniversary by opening a new 104,000 square foot facility in Huntsville. At the event, Representative Rogers said, "When you look at what Radiance is working on, it's not just on the cutting edge of what this town's doing. It's on the cutting edge of what we're going to be needing in the future as we try to defend our country and fight the wars of the future. AI, cyber, hypersonics, all those things are essential for us being able to fight the wars of the future, and you're on the cutting edge of that. I'm thrilled about the success that you've had as a company. I can tell you that you have some great leadership as well as great employees, and I am certain that you're going to continue the success in the future. Congratulations." Yeah, well, you know what? It'd be nice if we didn't have any wars in the future. I don't know, just saying. In contrast to Radiance Technologies, Lockheed Martin is a considerably larger entity, as we all know. Since 2010, the company has contributed over $190,000 apiece to Representative Turner and Representative Rogers, respectively. Notably, in the 2021-2022 cycle, Lockheed made a significant donation to Rogers, providing him with $70,750. And in the 2019-20 cycle, Turner received $74,350 from Lockheed Martin. Importantly, it should be noted that despite suspicions of such influence, there is no evidence to suggest that Radiance Technologies, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, or the CIA are influencing Representatives Turner or Rogers. Any potential private influences driving Representatives Turner and Rogers remain private. I mean, yeah, for now. But let's be honest. We know what this looks like, right? I mean, again, if it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, there you have it, folks. Furthermore, multiple sources have told Liberation Times that the allegations made regarding Radiance Technologies are untrue, and that two of its employees, Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor, are longtime advocates for more transparency on this topic and are in no way involved in any cover-up. As I mentioned earlier, Sheehan had some allegations that he made against both of those gentlemen. Notably, earlier this year, Representative Rogers was involved in a heated confrontation with UAP advocate and fellow Republican Representative Matt Gaetz. Although Gaetz recently called Rogers an ally on this topic. Meanwhile, sources have informed Liberation Times that another UAP advocate, Representative Tim Burchett, is being targeted by Representative Rogers to unseat him from office. It should also be noted that Burchett recently claimed that Speaker Mike Johnson wants total disclosure. Boy. The article goes on. There's a lot here if you guys want to read it. It's at liberationtimes.com from a friend of the show, Christopher Sharp. Excellent work as always, digging up the dirt and keeping us informed out here. So we've reached the final couple minutes of the show, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that have stayed the entire time, hat off to you. I deeply appreciate it. So we'll take a little moment here just for some shameless plugging. obviously, I have my YouTube channel, Cortex Zero, where I make content related to the phenomenon and subjects that tie in with it. Got a new video on the way regarding the fears of the secret keepers. Keep an eye out for that. Big shout out, obviously, to my co-host Digby. I am saddened that he could not be here with me today. It's never the same without him. But hopefully, if things go the way I think they will, this coming Sunday he will be here with us. And I imagine that this upcoming week will probably bring us even more bombshells, breaking news, and rumors for us to discuss together. And if you enjoyed the show today, everyone, please make sure you leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, family, share it everywhere you can. It means the world to us. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications. And you can obviously follow me on Twitter at Cortex_0. Of course, I still call it Twitter, X. And you can follow Digby at DFerno. So we've hit that fun little part at the end of the show. And I think you guys know what's coming in 3, 2, 1.
Speculation Station.
I'm going to do this one in real time. I haven't even thought of a question for this yet. It was such a crazy week, such a crazy day. So taking into consideration everything that has been released and spoken about, and rumored this week. This is a question that comes up, but I think it's worth asking. So I'll ask it to close out the show. Do you, the audience, believe that someone, at least in the United States, has been very successful in reverse engineering NHI technology and are now utilizing it to their benefit? Meaning that maybe some of what we see, like true unknowns, 5 observables, etc., legitimate UAP, could some of that be man-made, that was reverse engineered from non-human technology? How successful have they been, really? How do you feel about that? We'll make the question a little bit more nuanced. How successful do you think they've been in reverse engineering this tech? Do you think there have been some bottlenecks or hiccups that they're still stuck on and haven't necessarily progressed? And how much of our human technology that we know publicly has been either a direct descendant of NHI technology or inspired by it? Definitely something to ponder for the rest of your evening or day. This is now the end of the show, folks. It's been kind of weird doing it this way, not live, on my own, but I still enjoyed every minute of it. I hope you did too. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell, leave some feedback in the comments section. And if you go and watch this on Spotify as well, make sure leave some feedback there too. Again, it means the world to Digby and I. We really enjoy doing this. We got some really cool guests lined up. Those announcements will be coming very soon. Just trying to confirm some of the times. People have crazy schedules. We were going to actually have a guest today, but she asked to come on next week because she wants to be here when the show is live. And I said that would be fantastic. It's really fun to do it that way because then we can get the audience questions in. And it's just overall a really pleasant experience when everyone's involved in real time like that. So for Digby Ferno, I am Tom Thompson. Thank you for watching the Unidentified Anomalous podcast. We'll catch you in the next episode. Stay safe out there, guys. Take care. Eyes to the skies. And make sure you contact your local and state representatives regarding the Schumer Amendment. Let's keep fighting for truth. Take care.